Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to STEM Lockdown Digital School. This is grade 12 IT, and I am Lalani Lagransi, your presenter. So as promised, today we're going to look at the May-June paper of 2019, question 4. And I'm going to take you directly to the question paper. Sean, I see you asking a question there, asking if there's a way to do a two-table code construct. Are you talking about SQL or are you talking about our database programming using arrow tables? I'm not quite sure if you're talking about your pack maybe, or what exactly your question is. I also saw that someone's hand was up. I'm not going to be able to see that while I am teaching. If you have a question, please open the chat and ask the question in there. So first, for this question, we need to have a look. Okay, Sean, we'll deal with that at the end. Must just remember. So you also need to tell me, Sean, if it's for SQL. Okay, I will show you guys. Maybe we'll have a look if there's time to show you that today, or if I should maybe do that tomorrow at the start of the lesson. But I am able to show you how to read from both tables. Okay, so we have the array called array types, and this holds values, string values of 4 different types of trees. So citrus, deciduous, nuts, and tropical. So that is given, and then you also have another one-dimensional list, and this list looks like this, and it contains the names of trees and then a hash, and then the character that matches the your array, this one here. So C, D, N, and T, you'll see behind the name of each tree. So this is in your one-dimensional array. Once you go through this paper, you would be able to see that this could also have been given in a text file. And then you read from the text file doing the question the same way. So then they just give you a description here of what the list means. So macadamia is the name of the tree, then a hash, and then the N stands for that it's a nut tree. Then they've also declared for you the array tree, the two-dimensional array. It has 4 columns and 6 rows. So the 4 columns here, once you read the question, you'll see that it corresponds with, and I'm going to scroll back again, with this array here. So in my array trees, row 1 is going to hold all the citrus trees, row 2, the deciduous trees, 3 nuts, and 4 tropical. And I have to read from this array list, which is this one, and I have to place them in the correct row of my two-dimensional array. That was the first part of the question. So there's also 2 global variables declared for you. itypes has a value of 4 and inum. So that's obviously itypes is for our rows, and then inum is for our columns. And then important to note, modular design. So what I've done is I've created a display procedure so that I have a procedure inside of my program. So this whole question, all it is really saying is what I explained just now. You're going to read from array list and you're going to place the tree in the correct row of array trees according to the type. So that's just what it's explaining there, and it's telling you to store the data, and then it's also asking you to enable the 2 buttons here. So the next part here is then the display. I'm just going to read this question as well, because the top part is actually not going to produce any output yet. And then only question 4.2 will produce output once we've read the values into the array. And note now you have to display the type of tree here on the left. That would be stored in array type. And then the rest of this here that you see is your two-dimensional array trees once you've read those values in there. Okay, so let me take you guys to, I wanted to tell you this. For those of you guys who have done this question, you would have seen that there was actually an error in the given code. So I've copied out in green here the given code. The error that was made was that the banana, which is tropical, they gave this array with an S at the end instead of a T. Now for my solution, you're just going to have to replace all those S's with a T in order for my solution to work. So there are obviously ways to get around it. In another way to test for a T, but my solution is going to need the T there. So that's what I've done with my array list. I've just replaced all the S's with T's, and then there is the given code. So for question 4.1, itypes is your given variable that was set to 4. Now these are going to be, where I use K, this is going to be my rows of my tree. And it corresponds now with the type of tree. So let's just, what I'm doing here, and obviously there will be more than one solution to this question, is I am taking one row at a time. So one row of array trees, and let's say we start with K as 1, and that would be our citrus trees. Now, we are not adding every item from array list into this two-dimensional array. So therefore, I will have to keep track of my columns that I want to add to my two-dimensional array. So I'm going to use inc_icol once I have to add the tree to my two-dimensional array. And because I'm using this, I'm going to start it here as at 0. But remember now, I'm taking one row at a time. So I want every new row to start with the column counter as 0. And that is why I'm initializing on the inside of this for loop and not on the outside. Else you'll go with the citrus trees up to 6. And then when you want to add the citrus trees, which was in row 2, you would then go to I column 7, which would then give you an access violation. So it's important to have initialized your column counter on the inside of your for loop. Then my for loop here that says I row, that loops through my array list. So let's just fix that. That is array list, and it was declared with 24 trees in this array. So now I'm looping through this whole array, and I've broken down my code for you, even though you can do it in the one line. But I'm just here, I'm keeping the length of this item that I'm at the moment. So let's say I am at the item array list I row contains orange hash C. What I'm doing here is I'm keeping the length now of that string. And what I'm doing in the next row is here I'm going to the last character that is in this item. So I'm keeping the length, and then I am using the length to get hold of the C in this case. So this is I last. So array list, this is, let's say, orange has C. On this side, we only have C now in the RAM. And I am comparing it against my type. So remember now, array types also only has 4 items, and it corresponds with your two-dimensional array. The first item in array types is citrus, and I'm going to the first character of citrus, and that means I am getting hold of the C. So what I'm testing in this if statement is the last character of my item in array list equal to the first item or the first character in my array types for the correct row that I'm going to add to the two-dimensional array now. That's quite a mouthful. I hope you guys understand. Just out of interest, I once discovered this by mistake. You know, we all teach ourselves how to use these programs. So when we look at array list, this is a one-dimensional array. If you do that, so you treat it as a two-dimensional array, it actually also works. So you can take, because if you think about a string, and this part here, only that there, that's a string. And a string is actually an array of characters. So I can use this. This will go to the first item, to the last character by doing that. But you guys don't have to do that. I think you're more familiar with using the square brackets like that. So you can do the same here. You can replace those two square brackets with a comma. So here, if I do now find, so let's say the first tree, the orange tree in array list is a citrus tree, this statement here will be true. And now I'm incrementing my column counter and I'm placing orange in row 1, column 1 of array trees. And you'll see here I am using array trees on the right to put that value into that two-dimensional array. So if I now, remember the inner loop will go all the way from 1 to 24 first, and then only will we go to the next row. So while row is looping, k will stay 1 for the first time that the for loop of k is looping. And I will now find all the trees that are citrus trees and place them then in column 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This here is now the end of my if statement. This is the end. The green for loop is the end of my row loop that loops through an array list. And then the orange for loop now loops through both my two-dimensional array and my array types. So once you have added all the citrus trees, only then will k change to 2. Your column count is then set to 0 again. And now I go and search through array list for the deciduous tree. So everywhere array types 2 holds deciduous. So everywhere where there's a D for the type and the last character of the string is also a D, and then I add the deciduous trees. And so I loop through my two-dimensional array I loop through it 4 times, for 4 of the rows, adding the trees to each column. Very important then is that you enable your 2 buttons as was asked. So that was probably the hardest part of the paper. I don't think the rest of the paper was that difficult. Question 4.2 asked you to display, and this is where I wrote a display procedure. So because of the question that said it needed to be modular code. So I'm here clearing my rich edit because you'll see that the output is always at the top of the rich edit if you have a look at the screenshots provided. And here I'm looping through my rows of array trees. And I have to display in a rich edit. And I see that the last couple of years that has been the trend, is to display in a rich edit instead of a string grid. So make sure that you prepare yourself for both. I am starting my display string with the name of the type. So in array types 1 is citrus. So the first time that I loop here, I will add citrus to S display with a colon and then a #9. Then I will loop through my two-dimensional array for that row. So while row is 1, I'm going to go to column 1 to 6, and I'm going to add each tree to my S display, and I'm going to build my string to display. Just before I then go to the next row, I then display in my rich edit, I display this variable. So now I will loop again. Our row changes to 2. I add deciduous, that was what was stored in array types 2, to my S display. So now I don't have the citrus code anymore because I'm overwriting it with array types, the colon and the tab space, and then loop again and add all of them. So this is typical code that you definitely can study on how to display a two-dimensional array using a parallel one-dimensional array. So array types is our parallel array that holds the names of the trees and corresponds with the rows of my two-dimensional array. Okay, so that was question 4.1 and 4.2. Now we need to have a look at question 4.3. And this question is asking us to sort alphabetically, but you have to read carefully. I'll show you the screenshot that makes more sense. I have to sort my two-dimensional array in alphabetical order. If you look at the screenshot here, within a row, so I'm keeping citrus trees where they are, but from left to right, they are in alphabetical order. Alphabetical order always means from A to Z. Now also, you will see that the screenshot here is now different. I do not have the hash and the C and the D and the N and the T there. I only have the name of that tree. So that is what we need to do. Delete the last two characters of the element in the array tree. So I'll still be able to use my display procedure because it's displaying array trees. I have to delete it from array trees. And then I sort it, and then I will be able to see my trees if I click on button 4.2. So this is what I've done here. And let's just go to question 4.3. So what we're doing here is we are looping from 1 to I types. Remember, I types had a value of 4. That's my 4 rows. And in here, before I start sorting, I am getting rid of all that bit, the hash and the character in my two-dimensional array. So I have found the position of the hash, and then I take my array trees, row and column, and I delete from the position of the hash for 2 characters. So I find this character and I delete for 1, 2 characters. Okay, so after this code has completed, I now have the names of the trees without that bit at the end, just the name. Still inside of this for loop, now you have to picture this. You want to take one row at a time and you want to sort the columns of that row. So the row, you always have to kind of imagine what you are doing, like imagining the two-dimensional array in your mind. The rows are staying the same. So citrus stays citrus, they stay in row 1. But while the I row is 1, I want to sort the columns. So you'll see my for loop. The for loops here for sorting is exactly the same as your for loops in one-dimensional arrays. We still have an outer loop that goes to the, this would be 6 minus 1. And then the inner loop that starts at I out plus 1 and loops all the way to the end. And my if statement here is now comparing trees in the same row. You'll see the row stays the same, but I'm comparing the trees to see if I out is larger than I in. If it is, I am swapping. Remember, we start and end with a keeper. And then we start with a value here on the right. So remember, everywhere I row is going to stay the same. What I'm swapping is the columns within the row. So I have I out here on the right. And if I have I out on the right, I have to put I in on the left. And then if I have I out on the left, I have to have I in on the right. And if I in is on the right, I then have I in on the left. And if you can draw these diagonal lines with I in and I out, you know you've done it correctly. And your keeper, start and end with your keeper. This is really code that you guys need to study. Best way to understand how sorting works is actually to complete a trace table. So this is now sorting each row. So once the for loop of our row hits the end here, row 1 will be sorted in alphabetical order. Remember, this here is the character that determines if we're sorting in ascending or descending order. And those who've been watching me, I never know which way it should go. So I just run my code and see what it produces. If it's sorting in the Z to A instead of A to Z, I just swap that character for the other one, and then I'm all sorted. So this is really question 4.3. I don't think a very difficult question. You just really had to keep track of all three arrays and how they all fit together. So I can go now to Sean's question. I have some theory questions after that question because I'm sure other people have some questions as well. Sean's also asking the code for sorting a one-dimensional array is the same as for two. Yes, Sean, let's just take an example of this. I'm going to copy and paste it, and I'm going to change it for you. Let's say we were asked to, let's just do that. I wanted to sort array list. Okay, so array list only had, it was a one, oh, I shouldn't do that. It was a one-dimensional array. So what I'm doing here is quickly fixing this so that you guys can see. This would be only this, not inside of another loop. To sort a one-dimensional array, this is what it would look like. I out, I in, the number of items stored in your array minus 1. If you guys, maybe someone can remember what the error is, especially in this program, if I don't use a minus 1 there, and then I out plus 1 all the way to I num, and then comparing your list and then swapping them. So the only difference here is that I don't have the two-dimensional array, which would need the second index in my square brackets. So there are other methods of sorting as well. The question could have asked you to sort the two-dimensional array, but according to one of its columns, or maybe according to the one-dimensional array. That has also been asked in previous papers. I'm going to have to go back and look at my past papers to see if we can maybe find a question like that, because I remember there was one like that at some point. Okay, so let me just quickly find, I'm going to find my explanation here of reading from both tables in my book. Let me just quickly go to multiple tables. Here it is explained. Okay. So just to get back to the question, one of the things, if you have a look at your PAT, you'll see in the mark sheet that you were asked to read from both tables in both SQL as well as using database programming, which is using your addo table component. And I'm quickly going to explain to you guys how to do that. So let's just take this example of where I have two tables. I always call this the parent and this is the child table for those who've been watching. One teacher has many children in her class. So the teacher here, the primary key, the ID is linked now to my teacher ID in the usernames table. And the teacher table was linked through a component called TBL teacher. And the usernames was the addo table was called TBL username. So what you need to do is you first need to determine what are you searching for. And that's always the table that I start with. So if I want to, let's say in this example, I'm looking for all the grade 11 learners. The grade of a learner sits in this table username. And that's why I start looping with TBL username.first. So I'm the outer loop, so you're going to have a nested loop. The outer loop here is looping through the username tables. And then on the inside, you're going to loop through your teacher table. But I start with the one where my condition sits. And my condition is I'm looking for grade 11 learners. So that is my if statement here. Okay, so table username dot first while not end of table. And very important, let me just zoom out so you can see more of the code. You have dot first there while not end of the table. And here is the end. At the bottom here is the end of my while loop. And just before that, I have my usernames dot next. Make sure that this username dot next does not fall inside of the while loop for the teacher. And it's not inside of any if or else statement. So what I usually do, if I can show you the previous page, is I usually code this first. And then I code in between to make sure that I place dot first while not end of table, and dot next in the correct position. Okay. So here I'm testing if the person is in grade 11. If they are in grade 11, then I have this begin and end here for the if statement. And I now loop through my teacher table. And my aim is actually to look for the link where the two records have the same ID. So I am starting on the inside of this if statement with a table.first of the teacher while not end of the table. Also, remember the teacher table.next inside of the inner while loop. So this while loop where the teacher table sits. Again, I would code as I showed you guys just now, where I just do dot first while not end of table and the dot next and the begin and end, and then code in between. And what this if statement now here is doing is it's searching for that link. Where is the teacher ID value of the record that's stored in the, well, the value stored in the teacher ID field of the record I'm currently at? Is it equal to the teacher's ID? That's how it was linked. Sometimes the fields are named the same, sometimes they're not. They don't have to be named the same to have a link. So I am searching here in this if statement for my link. And if I do find the link, I then do whatever is required. In this case, I'm displaying the child's name as well as the name of the teacher. So that was, yeah, that is hopefully, Sean, answers your question. What I want to do is I want to take you guys quickly to I've made another PowerPoint because it's really hard to determine. Sorry, I've lost my mouse for some reason is playing up. That's fantastic. I don't know, I'm never sure how much we can get through in a lesson. So what I've done is I've started for us a new PowerPoint where we go through some past papers for theory. But I am not focusing on the bits that you have to study. I'm focusing on the bits that you actually have to practice. And the question 4 and 5 of theory papers are always the worst answered question because, you know, they do those analysis and then your teachers go off to the roadshow and they give us feedback. And year after year, they tell us that this is the worst answered question. And the reason for that is it's really difficult to actually study for this work. Once you know your practical work, then there's nothing really to study for certain parts of these questions. So I've taken out the parts in these questions where we can't actually study, but we do need to practice these questions. So this is from the final of 2018, question 4, this first question. And you are given now a scenario where there's, no, I can't remember it's some kind of a employee job card. Can't remember exactly. Oh, it was a waiter. It was waiters. Yes, so there it says it was waiters, and each waiter has a job card. And on a job card, this is everything. So imagine this was now written down on paper. This is what a job card looks like. And then they suggest that you create this table TBL waiter, and they have placed there for you this waiter ID must be a primary key, and then you want to have the values of initial and surname as one of the fields, which is a text data type, and then also the field permanent appointment. Now you guys have to tell me, you type in the data type for me for what should be the waiter ID. So you can have a look, what would be the data type of the waiter ID? Yes, that's correct, Sean. Here at the top, that's right, Thomas. Waiter ID here at the right top, you can see it's W001. Even though it contains numbers, the fact that it has a W in there, it would be a text data type. And then permanent appointment, what that would be, yes, Sean, a yes, no data type. So you can see here on the job card, there's a little checkbox, and that is why it should be a yes, no data type for this table. So this was 2 of the questions. I've not copied out all of the questions because some of the questions you really need to I'm going to have to ask you to go and, look up the answer in the textbook. That's bits that you have to study. So there's lots of studying work to do in your theory books, but these parts of the paper is extremely important that you guys practice. And I'll try and include some of them in every one of our lessons at the end of the lesson, depending on how much time we have left. The next part here says a report with alphabetical list of the waiters sorted according to their surname is required. Evaluate the structure of TBL waiter and state the problem that will arise when attempting to generate this report. So what would be the problem if we want to sort TBL waiter using our SQL code, and we want to sort according to the field named initial and surname, but we want to sort according to the surname. I know you guys have to type a little bit of a longer answer, but just give me the gist of why would we not be able to do that? What would be the problem with this table? And this is actually one of the reasons, and I'm not giving away the answer, I'm waiting for you guys to type. This is actually not a normalized table. I don't know how many of you guys have done normalization, but this is the fact that this table is not normalized is part of the problem of why we won't be able to sort it according to the surname. Okay, Sean, not quite there yet. I see you guys are struggling with this question. Even if we had the same surnames, the initial year in this table goes first. So I am, my name and surname is not a good example. My daughter's initial is M and her surname is Lagrange. So my problem is if I'm going to sort according to the initial and surname field, she'll fall under the M's because the value there is M Lagrange. I can't get hold of the surname. So it's not possible to sort according to the surname because both of these entities, the initial and the surname, they've both now been placed as one field. And I won't be able to sort according to the surname because it will sort according to the person's initial. I hope that makes sense. I do prefer to stand in front of a class and draw on a board and write things down. Okay, let's have a look at the next question. So now you have created this job card and for TBL waiter. We're keeping it there. So a normalized table would have initial and surname as two separate fields and not as one. Then you would be able to sort according to the surname. And then they ask you to create another table here, TBL job card. And you want to, first of all, so one waiter will have many job cards. And what you asked here is to, let's first say, what would you suggest would be the primary key field name of my job card? So our waiter information is stored in TBL waiter, and we want to place each job card's values in its own record. Linked now also, but we'll get to the linking later. Which field, if we have a look at the job card here, yes, that is correct, Skulk. We'll use job card NO. That would be a unique value for the job card. So we're going to use the job card NO in here as the primary key field, since it's unique. Okay, so they say here we should add normal hours worked. So we're going to place normal hours worked in here. Let's just first say, what would you say should be the foreign key field? So what are you going to use? Which field name are you going to use as the foreign key? We want to link the two tables. One waiter has many job cards. Which field would be appropriate to use as the foreign key? And remember, the foreign key would be the waiter ID. Yes, Sarah and Sean, that is correct. So this here, where the primary key sits in my parent table, That would be one waiter has many job cards, same as one parent has many children. Waiter ID would now be my other field that I would add to TBL job card, and that will become my foreign key through which I link these two tables. So if I did it in Access, the many would sit here on the right in TBL job card next to waiter ID. Last question. What other fields would you also now include in TBL job card? You can just type any one at a time because there is more than one. So what other fields would we need from this job card to put in TBL job card? We already have the primary key job card. We already have the waiter ID. That's in there already. And then we have the normal hours worked. What other fields from your job card would you think? The overtime worked? Yes, that's correct, golden boy. Overtime work, that would be a field that we want to add to our but there's more, so I'm waiting for more. Okay, Skalk, that is the question. I was waiting for that answer. We're not allowed to add total hours worked, and if you added it, you would actually have lost a mark, not because you added, well, because you added it in incorrectly. Now, you guys have to remember when we want to get to a normalized table, and keep this in mind when you're drawing up your database for your PAT, we may not have a calculated field in a table. So if I have normal hours worked and I have overtime hours, I can add them together and I can get the total hours worked. And for that reason, this is a common mistake, is that learners include calculated fields in our tables. Anything that you can calculate from another field, you may not add in there. So definitely not the hours, total hours work. Start of the week, yes, Skalk is correct. Can someone maybe tell me if I added total hours work, there's a word for it, there's a term. You know, those one word answers. There's a term for adding total hours worked. It's adding something that is not needed. And the Afrikaans people are welcome to answer in Afrikaans. I'm not sure if I will be able to know if it's right or wrong. But if you know the term, maybe it will make sense to me. But there's a term we used in databases if we have something there that is extra, I will call it. Data redundancy, that's correct, Skalk. I think you're going to do very well this year. Okay. Now I couldn't ask you guys to draw this because it's going to be difficult. So I'm going to explain drawing an ERD, entity relationship diagram, for a database, so that I'm sure you guys all know how to do this. It is very easy, and you guys should all get full marks for this question. And again, it's something you need to practice. Remember, the memos of these past papers are online, and you have to practice it like maths. You don't just look at it. You do it, you write it down, and you check your answer. Now, what is important is we have to declare, well, we have to draw the ERD. I think it's called a crow's foot, because you'll see here where the many sits next to the job card picture at the bottom, you'll see there's a crow's foot. And how this works, if you've been following me, I always talk about the parent table and the child. Put your parent table on the left, and inside this block, you don't put the name of the table. You put down a noun, 'n selfstandige naamwoord, that describes this entity. So this is this table. How would I describe it if I have to put down a noun? I would say it's the waiter. And then you put these two vertical dashes over, well, you're going to draw the line here between your two entities. On this side here, you're going to put two vertical lines. That means one and only one. In other words, I only have one waiter on the left. That's where my primary key sits. So I will a waiter's ID and their surname and appointment, there's only going to be one of each waiter as a record. I'm not going to have duplicate values there. So that is what the 2 dashes mean, one and only one. On the right here, I'll get to the middle panel just now. This is where your child table goes. And this is, again, you have to put a noun, a selfstandige naamwoord, inside of the little block and describe this. So this is if we have to describe the table for the job card would work. So it's a noun describing this table. And on this side where my foreign key sits, I'll have my crow's foot. And what that means is one waiter has many job cards. And that's what the crow's foot mean, is the many. And what you put on top of this line here is a verb, a werkwoord. And there you have to say, and as a little tip and a please, it might not work this year. So, but as a tip, the word has usually works. But you're going to have to just see in the scenario that is given to us at the end of this year. But the word has is usually my go-to place. So one waiter has many job cards, and that's usually how you'll be able to do that. We still have a few minutes to answer some more questions, so you guys can get your typing fingers ready. I want you guys to list me. There's 3 types of errors in Delphi. Okay, start typing my errors that I can get, and these are types of errors. I'm not talking about the actual error that you get in Delphi. The logical error, yes, correct, that's one. And what is our next one? A runtime error, yes, 0, that's correct. And then a syntax error. We've got them all 3. Now, if you look at the example that I give you here, and this is also from a past paper, you guys tell me what type of error, if we have to pick between logical, runtime, and syntax error, which type of error would this be? The first line already tells me what it is, but this was actually not how it was asked. This was actually, I copied from the memo. So this is not a logical error, Mason, even though we think so, because we shouldn't be dividing by 0 because we can't. But in Delphi, it's not called a logical error. A logical error would be something where you are doing a calculation, you're getting output, but the output is incorrect because your calculation was incorrect. It is called a runtime error. Just if you have to picture the errors, just to help you, a syntax error is when you run your program and you get that red line. So anything that you can imagine giving you that red line over your screen, that would be a syntax error. A logical error is going to be you don't have output maybe. So a lot of grade 10s always, man, but it's not working. It's not showing anything. And then I have to say, yes, but you have not coded the output. So not having output or doing a calculation incorrectly. So you have a calculation, it is running, it's not crashing, but the answer that it's producing is incorrect. That would be a logical error. And then if you can imagine your program crashing, that would be an example of a runtime error. In this paper, they didn't give you what you see on your screen at the moment. They asked you to give an example of what could cause a runtime error. So while you're going through these past papers, I suggest that what you do is you actually make yourself new notes so that you can study them. Make some notes on, syntax errors, runtime errors, and use the memos of the question to make these notes and do the questions so that you can get better at them. I'll have some more for you guys. So we are unfortunately done with any paper that will look like yours would look at the end of the year. We have 3 available papers. We worked through all 3 of them for exactly what it's going to look like next at the end of this year. However, all the other past papers are brilliant to practice. And I actually find them especially for the questions that are left. So the one we're going to do next is the supplementary, the May-June paper of 2018, question 1. Oh, I must say I didn't check on the website if it was under May or March. Just have a look at the ones that don't say November 2018. You can have a look and download it from there. Now, what I like about these older papers is the questions are a bit longer. So there's a little bit more practice for you guys per question. So what we'll do is we'll look at this paper, question 1 to 3, then we'll jump to a sequel question again of one of the older papers, and we'll work through that one again, and every day doing some theory as well. So for tomorrow, go and download this paper, the supplementary of 2018, on the website education.gov. Oh, goodness, now I opened up the chat really large. I was trying to just click to the next slide. So have a look at the website education.gov.za. Go to curriculum. It's also under National Senior Certificate. And as I say, it's either called May, June 2018, or it's called April, March, roundabout March, April, roundabout there 2018. Download the paper and practice question 1 before you watch tomorrow's lesson. So thank you very much, guys, for watching. This was grade 12 IT at STEM Lockdown Digital School. And I see I have another question. So let me just open my chat again. I don't have a question. Thank you, Mason, for joining us. And we'll see you tomorrow, same link, same time. And please follow Africa Teen Gigs on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And also these videos are uploaded onto the YouTube channel called Africa Teen Gigs. There is a playlist for grade 12 IT as well as for the other subjects that you could benefit from. Thank you, guys. See you tomorrow. Bye.